so you didn't really you didn't do anything. You didn't focus as part of your focus group, huh?
That's right. It was kind of like we discussed our like what sections we were gonna do, and then the deadline that we were gonna have our portion submitted by, and then that was it.
We're on.
Yay.
So okay, so have you thought about it at all since we last talked?
Honestly, no.
Well,
not at all.
Well, let's think about it a little bit more now. One phrase we didn't mention on Monday was zero tolerance. It occurs to me might have been part of the war on drugs.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, why you say that's correct? Why have you done research on that topic?
Well, because whenever I was kind of, after we got off the last Zoom meeting, I was still had everything pulled up and I was kind of like going through things. And so I guess the policy that we would be narrowing down on would be the war on drugs, not necessarily the zero tolerance, right?
Well, I mean, your assignment says zero tolerance.
Yes and no. So zero tolerance.
You are going to be an excellent politician.
What?
You are going to be an excellent politician. You can give totally ambiguous answers and still be truthful. It's amazing.
Yes. So whenever we were on our Zoom meeting the other day, we did start the template and pick out a design for the brochure, and we did title it War on Drugs.
Oh, okay.
So
so it was by consensus. Now I'm a little bit concerned with this 10-page limit. Is that a limit or is that a minimum?
No, that's a limit. You cannot go over 10 pages. So we are going to have to condense all of this into 10 pages.
And
that's for the entire thing.
Is that a minimum type? Is there a minimum type font? I mean,
well, so usually we do like 12. It has to be APA format. So either Times New Roman 12, or there's another one that's like 11. The font's size 11, but I can't remember what the font name is. I always just use Times New Roman.
I am told that you should. I have read that you should never submit a resume in Times New Roman.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because it's used, Times New Roman is used so often and for so many purposes that if you use Times New Roman, you show no initiative and no individuality.
Really?
I am just telling you what I've heard.
That's interesting.
So anyhow,
I'm going to send you this sample so you can pull it up and see.
All right. Okay.
Because she did include like a sample brochure.
All right. How are you going to send it to me?
Hold on. I'm gonna
send it to me Telegram. I want you to get in the habit of going to Telegram.
Well, I'm on my computer right now. I don't have Telegram on here.
Why not?
You can put Telegram on your computer?
Yes, I have it on both my Telegram, my phone, and my computer.
Oh shit!
I just signed off, as a matter of fact, to talk to you. I was having a rather spicy discussion with somebody about the Ghislaine Maxwell case.
Uh-oh. How'd that go?
Good so far. We'll see where it goes.
Is that the guy that you were on YouTube with 2 hours ago?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
That's kind of okay. You'll want to meet him, but I mean, we sort of agreed that we were going to lay off politics for a few weeks so that you could get your homework done.
Yeah. And then regroup on that.
I didn't want you to be telling me that you couldn't do these podcasts because you had to do your homework. So I said, okay, let's just do your homework. And as it happens, the topic is awfully important and awfully interesting.
Yes.
And as far as the war on drugs go, your responsibility for, I mean, you know, the danger of working with me, of course, is that, you know, you could write a 10-page history and then say, can we like double the page limit so that other people can write something? As a matter of fact, we could probably do a 20 or 30-page paper on the history of, if you want to call it the war on drugs. There is so much to say about the war on drugs. What is the war on drugs? First, you tell me what you know and understand about the phrase the war on drugs.
Hold on.
What is it and why do we have one?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming it's exactly what it says, the war on drugs, where let me put my back on my Zoom thing. Hold on, because my camera's off. Hold on.
Uh-huh.
I had closed down Zoom because I was in my email sending you something, so I couldn't see you. Okay. Anyways, so the war on drugs is pretty much exactly what it says, where they're trying to create different sort of policies and laws in order to, you know, cut down on people that are experimenting with it, right? Drug prohibition, essentially.
How would you characterize the 14-year experiment in prohibition from what we know about it?
What do you mean by that question? What do you mean, how would I characterize it?
What do you have to say about prohibition 1919 to 1933? Was it a good idea? Bad idea?
I think it's been an awful idea. The whole thing that we did, even with the zero tolerance policy, I feel like the more that you try and tighten down on certain laws and restrictions, specifically with drugs, it's counterproductive. And I feel like it's pretty much proven that.
So, I mean, why do people do it?
Why do people use drugs?
Why do governments want to take this kind of
control?
Doom to fail. Good answer. Good answer. And why do they choose things? I mean, this is related to the Ghislaine Maxwell case too, as a matter of fact. Why is it that basically things like sex and drugs and food are such regular targets for regulation and control?
Because they're perceived as being bad, negative things. That's why I think. I mean, I don't know.
Well, they're at least sex and food are essential to life. If human beings stop having sex or stop eating, the human race will end relatively quickly.
Right.
And, you know, since if you include the archaeological evidence of use of cannabis, we were talking about going back thousands of years to those tents. And alcohol going back way, maybe even further than that. There's something about the human experience, the human mind, that requires the escapism or the calming effect, what you were describing, you know, your use of alcohol to calm. basically a hyperactive mind. It's something that's key and elemental to the human experience. And basically, these are things people cannot do without, at least not very easily.
Right.
And so it's basically control over the most fundamental aspects of human life.
Yeah.
And prohibition, and it's basically related, I think, to the so-called progressive movement. The progressive movement is all about basically busybodies trying to make other people better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's closely related to Puritanism and the idea of religion, that people cannot be controlled, that they cannot be trusted to control their own exercise of free will. And the interesting thing about the chronology of prohibition was it basically came out as a national policy 1918 to 1919. What was happening in the teens?
I don't know what was happening back then.
The teens, the 19 teens.
I don't know. What was happening?
You must know something about the teens.
I don't know. I probably do, but I mean, I don't know what you're referring to.
In general, just who was president, for instance? For most
And
Philippines.
I mean, there wasn't one president, was there?
So there was one president for 8 years of the teens, yes. 1913 to 1921.
Wilson? Lincoln?
They were 60 years apart, basically. But you said Wilson first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's
I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, you threw out you got it right the first time, and then you said Lincoln, and you got me worried. Lincoln had been dead for 57 years by the time Wilson became president. Well, I mean, the interesting thing about Wilson, one of the many interesting things about Wilson, is that he was the first Southerner, true Southerner, to become president, to be elected president. I guess Andrew Johnson was literally the first Southerner, but he was the first Southerner to be elected president since Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Andrew Johnson was from Tennessee and acceded to the presidency on Lincoln's death. But Woodrow Wilson was the first Southerner to be elected since 1865. And what's interesting is that he was elected by Theodore Roosevelt splitting the Republican Party.
Yeah, because he was a Democrat, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Theodore Roosevelt had formulated, Theodore Roosevelt was like the first great progressive. He was all in favor. I mean, the Food and Drug Administration, for instance, came into existence under Theodore Roosevelt, FDA, that's the FDA was one of the main things that's been dominating the 20th century regulation of food and drugs and and alcohol, and indirectly has had a lot to do with sex too, because a lot of drugs relate to contraception or sex or abortion. A lot of that is within the field of the FDA. Anyhow, Roosevelt created the kernel of Theodore Roosevelt. He created the kernel of the Roosevelt, and then a real conservative Republican took over after Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft. And I briefly worked for his law firm. It's kind of funny.
Really?
Not when he was president. I'm old, but I ain't that old.
I was about to say,
No, but his William Howard Taft was actually, he was the third name added to the oldest law firm in the United States. The oldest law firm in the United States, Cadwallader, Wickersham and Taft, founded in 1792, was basically founded to help Alexander Hamilton implement the National Bank. Alexander Hamilton was the founder of something called the Bank of New York, which still exists. And the Bank of New York was basically the seed, the kernel of the modern banking industry in North America. It was copied after the Bank of England. And there had not been any major banks in the United States during the colonial period. So anyhow, Taft is the third name, Cadwallader, Wickersham and Taft. And that law firm continued to be very interested. Its chief client is still the Bank of New York, as a matter of fact. But anyhow, that's a totally different subject. William Howard Taft was not as progressive as Theodore Roosevelt wanted him to be. He wouldn't push through a federal income tax. He wouldn't cooperate with the creation of a new national bank, which was going to be known as the Federal Reserve Bank. He wouldn't cooperate with the final abolition of states' power by the implementation of popular election of senators. Do you understand what I mean by popular election of senators?
No. What do you mean by that?
These days, we vote in every state directly for a senator. But
right.
If you look back at the Constitution of 1787, that's not how it was supposed to be in the beginning. Popular representation in the original Constitution, 1787, was exclusively in the House of Representatives. The people, by population, each state is accorded a number of representatives based on its population, and people elect the representatives directly. But in the beginning, the constitutional framework was set up so that state legislatures would elect the senators. And this made the state legislatures much more powerful in the government, and hence preserved what we now call states' rights, which is almost non-existent now these days. But anyhow, those were all the programs that Theodore Roosevelt wanted to push through. And so when Taft wouldn't do it, Roosevelt had laid the foundation. Taft wouldn't move forward with it at all. And so Roosevelt in 1912, right before the teens, he ran against Taft for re-election and split the Republican vote. And that guaranteed the election of Woodrow Wilson. And so basically Woodrow Wilson's policy was determined by Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so what happened immediately in 1913, Woodrow Wilson's very first year in office, the first step was taken. 1913, the Federal Reserve banking system was instituted. We haven't talked about the Federal Reserve banking system much. It determines almost every aspect of how you and I live.
Now, is that from the Rothschild? Were they the creator of that?
That's a rather controversial question. The answer is indirectly yes, but it was actually other people. It was the main representative of the Rothschild interests in the United States was named Paul M. Warburg. He was also Jewish, like the Rothschilds, but there was also J.P. Morgan and the Chase family, and they were not Jewish. Assigned reading for you: The Creature from Jekyll Island.
The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yes. Do you know where Jekyll Island is?
No.
It's on the Atlantic coast of Georgia.
Okay.
And
what's special about it?
A bunch of people, including Paul M. Warburg and J.P. Morgan, got together there one day, and they came up with a plan for creating the Federal Reserve banking system. And they had to meet in secret because, as far as the public knew, they were bitter enemies and competitors.
Oh, okay. So they met on this island.
Yes, in order to, and it was a top secret meeting, and there was all sorts of covert operation and subterfuge. And anyhow, 1913, Federal Reserve Island. We will have to cover the Federal Reserve on many other podcasts. That's not a single podcast issue. Even the structure of the courts in the United States is directly connected to the Federal Reserve banking system.
That's interesting.
Mm.
Scary.
There are 13 circuits of circuit courts of appeal in the United States, and there are 13 Federal Reserve banking districts, and they match very closely. The first 5 actually match exactly. But anyhow, another subject. The thing that we need to talk about right now is the rest of Wilson's progressive agenda, because the origin of the war on drugs is in basically Theodore Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson's progressive agenda of the first 20 years of the 20th century, first 2 decades. After the enactment of the Federal Reserve in 1913, the next step was the adoption of the 16th Amendment, which was the income tax, and then the 17th Amendment, which was the abolition of states' rights, the institution of direct popular vote for senator. Now, what do you suppose is an inevitable consequence of having a statewide election for senator in the states? Who was really in favor of that, do you suppose?
Who was really in favor of having a statewide election?
Yeah, of having statewide popular elections for a United States senator. Every state gets 2, and part of the Constitution is that no state can ever be deprived of equal representation in the Senate. In other words, the Constitution has sort of a, you might call it a self-destruct clause, and that's it. If any state is ever denied equal representation in the Senate, that's the end of our current constitutional system.
Why?
Because the deal was that the states were going to be equal. That was just
so if anyone, well, what if you only had one?
That would be a violation of the Constitution that, according to the terms of the Constitution at least, is fatal. No state shall ever be deprived equal representation of the Senate. That's what it says. Anyhow.
Yeah. Anyways, I would think that
minor point from the war on drugs.
I would assume that the people would be in favor of a popular vote, right? Because the people already
elected the members of the state legislature who would otherwise be voting for it.
Right.
It's called indirect versus direct democracy. who would want to change the balance away from the states? I mean, for instance, let's just ask the question this way. You're considering going into politics.
Yes.
What's the first consideration you're going to have in order to run for office anyway?
Well, I'm gonna have to think about what would serve, what do the people want? Like what are issues, current issues? I'm not understanding where you're going with it, I guess.
Even to find out what people really care about, what do you need?
Issues. You need problems, you need people. Like, I don't know. What do you mean?
What we're doing right now is it's free, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't cost us, it doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't cost me, it costs me a tiny bit, I have to pay for extra storage in Zoom. But that's a very minor expense really in the grand scheme of things. Basically, we can chat for free here, but can you run for office for free?
No.
And
so you need funding. Is that where you were going with it? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because even to get a good idea of what people want, you've got to meet them. That means you've got, if you wanted to, if you think what it would take, I mean, if you say you're in which district you're in, who's your representative right now?
I couldn't even tell you, Charles. I don't know. Hold on, I'll tell you right now.
It's the guy who got shot.
Huh?
It's the guy who got shot.
The guy who got shot? Patrick McMath?
No,
are you looking for the senator?
I was looking for your U.S. representative.
Contact your reps. Hold on.
Steve.
Why did he get shot? I did not hear any of this.
You've been living a sheltered life?
I have lived a hell of a sheltered life.
You've never heard of Steve Scalise?
No. No, I sure haven't. I can't even find him on here.
I think the reason I love you so much is you had heard of David Duke, but you had not heard of Steve.
Yes, I am. I mean, look, you nailed it when you said I've lived a sheltered life. And I'm not kidding you. Politics in general is just like a whole nother world to me. All of it. The history behind it, what all it entails, who's ran for what. I mean, all of it. It has served no purpose in my life until recently, really until this virus hit. That's whenever my interest peaked in it. Like, what is going on in this world? But prior to that, I mean, I pretty much lived like day to day. I didn't even pay attention to any of that sort of stuff. Now, David Duke, obviously I knew about because my dad was a diehard David Duke fan. So
but I'll tell you another thing about David Duke. He was a man to be excited about.
Yeah.
Or to hate. A man who's worthy of hatred is a man worthy of being excited about.
I agree.
And basically nobody loves or hates Steve Scalise. Everybody feels really sorry that he got shot. And he's a decent fellow in every way. But he's kind of boring.
But why did he get shot then?
Again, we're going a little bit far afield, but it's hard to say. But he was shot at a baseball game, and anyhow, let's
get back to topic.
My point was, how many people would you have to, if you wanted to go look up Steve Scalise and look up his district? Let's do that.
Okay.
I think there are about 500,000 people per district, roughly. It might be, I believe his is the second Louisiana district, or maybe it's the first. It's either the first or the second. I'm still
representing the first district of Louisiana.
okay. How many registered voters are there in the first district?
In the first district?
They're roughly 500,000, but let's find out exactly.
Let's see.
500,000 people, not that many registered voters, I guess.
Voter records. Here we go. This is what I mean. Okay, well, that's not by district. Hold on.
What was it? What are we looking at?
Oh, here we go. Louisiana's first district. Let me click on this.
Actually, are you in this first district or are you in the second? Are you in the second district? Is your representative actually Cedric Richardson? Your representative might be Cedric Richardson, because I just think that, I mean, I'm in Steve Scalise's district. I was thinking you were, but you might be a Cedric Richardson. You live in Slidell?
Yep.
Yeah, it might just be Cedric Richardson.
Our phones went off at the same time. Our phones went off at the same time.
So who, Slidell in first or second?
I think it's in first.
Okay, so you're represented by Steve Scalise. And how many people are in it? How many registered voted in Louisiana's first congressional district?
That's what I'm still looking for. I can't get a definitive number. I mean, it tells you what the population is.
Wow, the population is 799,917.
Yes.
79.2% white.
72.2 voted for Steve.
Okay, so yeah, your Slidell is in
the first, yeah, district.
It's funny how just this little corner of the white corner of New Orleans is that's called gerrymandering. Another interesting topic. Anyhow, yeah, that's hilarious. I'm looking at the map of New Orleans, and it's like they were very careful to. It's got some absurd little islands drawn into New Orleans. That's the world we live in. What can you say? Anyhow, 799,000. What would it take if you wanted to run? Say Steve retires, or you decide to run in a similar district. You wouldn't want to run against Steve Scalise, that's for sure. But because he's kind of a popular guy, and everybody feels sorry for him because he got shot. Those who know he was shot feel sorry for him. Those who don't know he was shot could care less. But anyhow, that's typical of U.S. districts. And what if you wanted to meet 1 in every 1,000 people? You know, that would still mean you'd have to meet 799 people, and you'd want them to be spread out. And even that's meeting 1 in every 1,000 people is not enough to get elected. But think how much effort it would be just to meet 799 new people and persuade them to vote for you.
A lot.
That would be a lot of effort. You know, you'd have to throw a lot of parties. And that's what running for office really is it's throwing a lot of parties in fancy hotels. and getting people to come to $1,000 a plate dinners at these hotels, and then for people who can't afford $1,000 plate dinners, you throw barbecues, and then you have TV ads.
Mm-hmm.
And it often takes $1 million these days to win a congressional seat. There's an amazing case in New Jersey where somebody did it recently for like spent like $1,000 or something.
What?
But that's the exception these days rather than the rule. He ran an extremely good campaign, obviously.
Clearly,
But
we need him on our team.
well, he's already in Congress, so he can't be on the team. But anyhow, that my point is that that's just one district.
Mm-hmm.
If you want them to be elected to the Senate from Louisiana, Louisiana has 5 congressional districts. So 5 times roughly 800,000. So that's 4 million people, close to 3.8, something like that, in the state of Louisiana. That's a lot of TV time. That's a huge amount of money. Who has that kind of money? That's
certainly not me.
Huh?
Certainly not me.
Well, very few individuals do.
Yeah.
Very few individuals do. And a lot of those individuals don't want to spend their money on, the roll of the dice of running for Congress, because, you can spend a couple $1 million running for office and still lose.
Right.
So this gets back to the question, who really wanted statewide elections for the US Senate? Remember, we were going back to where does the war on drugs come from? Where it comes from the progressive era. Who really wanted the progressive era? The same people who wanted the Federal Reserve Bank, the income tax, and the 17th Amendment, abolition of states' rights. Who's that?
People of higher power.
In other words, corporations.
Right.
Corporations. I mean, Jerry ONeil, I think you've met him once on one of these podcasts. He believes that for his version of the story of the 17th Amendment is focused on Montana. And basically, in Montana, the story of the 17th Amendment is that there were some big copper companies, big copper mining operations that were being investigated for corruption by the state legislature. And they wanted to federalize the investigation. And so they pushed very hard to take the power away from the state and give it to the federal government by, in essence, creating a statewide election that they and only they could control. So the consequence of direct election of senators is that you can't do it on a local basis. You can't do it. Ordinary people basically cannot get involved in politics unless they either are extremely popular, which is what I'd hope for you, or they get corporate backing. And so the history of the 20th century is basically the history by which corporate interests supplanted individual and local interests and centralized power in the federal government. And that's directly related to the war on drugs. The teens under Wilson, if you go back through the history of the regulation of drugs, you will see that the earliest, we were looking at that ad on Tilden's extract in the middle of the century. in the mid 19th century, you could walk into a pharmacy or a farmer's house and buy cannabis.
Anything.
You could buy opium, like if they were growing poppies. Remember that scene in you disappeared. Remember that scene in the Wizard of Oz? Poppies will put them to sleep.
Yes, I do remember that. I was in that play, The Wizard of Oz. But anyway, keep going. Yes, I remember that.
Got any pictures or films?
I do.
Who did you
I have a bunch.
Who did you play?
I played a munchkin.
Okay, I want to see this.
I was young. I was like 10.
Okay, well, that's a good part. You deserve a better part than that, though. You need to be Glinda or Dorothy.
Interesting fact too. My senior year, I did a play and I played Rizzo.
Rizzo?
Rizzo.
Okay, who's Rizzo? I don't know.
Off of Grease Lightning. I mean, not Grease Lightning. Well, is it Grease Lightning? Is that what the name of the movie is called? I think it is Grease Lightning.
You mean
Yeah.
Grease?
Grease, yeah.
Grease, okay.
Grease.
Okay. Now hang on.
Yeah.
It was Grease, not Grease Lightning, Grease.
Well, I think the name of our play was Grease Lightning. Like, I think that's what we named it because from the
Was Rizzo the beauty school dropout?
Song. Yes.
Beauty school dropout.
Yes.
You were not meant to hold a job. Beauty
Yes.
school dropout who wants her hair done by a slob.
I had so much fun doing that play. I loved it. I'll have to send you pictures. It's hilarious. But anyway, I know that was totally off topic too, but
no, it's great. I love it. Because I brought up the Wizard of Oz because how many fields of poppies have you seen in your life?
None.
Why?
I've never seen a poppy field.
Okay, why?
Do they not exist?
They're illegal.
They are? I guess so because poppy seeds are illegal, right? No, they can't be. Poppy seeds can't be illegal because they're on buns.
You basically can't use them, and you can't raise them because you make opium out of them.
But they put them on hamburger buns.
I guess when cooked with yeast, they don't have that hallucinogenic effect. Although I've heard that they must have done something to them because some people I know used to flunk drug tests if they ate poppy seed bread.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was about to say that I know that it can make you fail a drug test, but I didn't know that it was like illegal.
Yeah, if it wasn't an illegal drug, it wouldn't make you flunk a drug test. Drug tests are all about, testing you for illegal drugs. I mean, I hope they don't flunk you for drug tests for aspirin.
Maybe if you take too much of it, it can. But this is a great example. We were just talking about marijuana and cannabis. So Delta 8 is legal, but it has a small percentage of THC. So even though Delta 8 is legal, if you smoke it, you're still going to flunk a drug test.
I guess that, what's important to do in this little, how many people are there? There are 5 people in your group, right?
Well, there's 4 now. 1 dropped the course.
1 dropped the course. Okay, so each of you get 2.5 pages. Is that it?
I guess so. And, they have. So look, I'm going to read you this because there are certain things that you have to talk about in each section. So for the historical background for this one, you have to identify historical problems that led to the original policy. And questions might include what historical problems led to the creation of the policy, and what ways was the problem handled prior to the policy? When did the policy originate and how has it changed over time? And what is the legislative history of the policy?
you want a really jaundiced perspective on some of those questions? I mean, have you sent me that, by the way?
I did. I emailed it to you. Not via Telegram because I don't have Telegram on my computer. I will load it on here though after.
Yeah, don't worry. But send me. Did you send it to me by email?
Yes, I did.
Okay. See if I can open it then, because it's kind of interesting. What if you were to come back and say that you sent it to me via reply. Hang on, you didn't send it attached. You didn't send me an attachment. Oh, you just did it as an insert?
Yeah, I just copied and pasted the link.
Okay, that doesn't work because I don't have an LSU account or a password. You'll have to PDF it or copy it in Word and send it to me.
Okay, hold on. Let me do that now.
I hit that link and it gives me nothing. Anyhow, I like the way you used the IHR to send it back to me. Bravo.
Okay,
One of these
sample.
days we're gonna make a trip out to California and I'll introduce you to the IHR. Anyhow, one of these days.
Where are you? There it is. Okay. Reply. Attach. Downloads.
Anyhow, let's see what we were talking about, poppies and poppy seeds, and what did we talk about after that?
We were talking about if it would make you fail a drug test or not. And then you said it wouldn't be legal if it didn't. And I said not necessarily, because Delta 8 is legal, but you will still flunk a drug test if you smoke Delta 8.
But you were talking about the elements of this program you've got, this brochure you've got to put together. And I was thinking that the first thing that they ask you is, what problems did this address? And what if the answer, what do you think will happen if you answer that there was no problem, that this only said about creating problems?
I mean, it's the truth.
In other words, all through the 19th, the 18th, the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, in colonial and early Republican 19th century, or even early 20th century United States, nobody was worried about the fact that there was cocaine in Coca-Cola.
Yeah, true.
That's what the name Coca-Cola comes from. It comes from cocaine.
I just sent it to you. I just sent it to you.
Okay. Hasn't shown up yet, but we'll see. Refresh. I got it.
I mean, what was the purpose in this? Is it because they were saying that criminal activity increased due to people using drugs, or?
No, because the criminal, you know, when organized crime started in the United States, don't you?
No, when?
In the 1920s.
Because of what though? Like what caused it?
Prohibition.
Okay.
I mean,
so if they would have never messed with any of this, we'd probably be fine. I mean, people might be high all the time, but we would be a-okay.
Well, I mean, our first president was the current estimate is that if George Washington were alive today with the same estate he had when he was president, he would have been worth close to $1 billion. That's what makes him second only to Trump. His estate was tremendous. He owned a tremendous number of plantations, basically, and all the equipment and homes and slaves that were involved in that plantation economy, and hemp was a big part of that.
Right.
So we don't really have a lot of direct evidence of George Washington smoking pot, but owning all that, what are the odds that he didn't?
Right, exactly.
What are the odds that Thomas Jefferson didn't? I mean, I was sort of making fun of it Monday night and saying, pot kind of makes people slow. It made him so slow that he wrote the Declaration of Independence, founded the University of Virginia, wrote the Virginia Bill of Rights, large part of the American Bill of Rights, was the first Secretary of State, negotiated peace with Great Britain, and was our first ambassador to France. And then was president who purchased Louisiana, thereby doubling the size of the United States.
Doesn't sound slow at all to me.
Well, I mean, if he had been any faster, I mean, I guess he might have been like conquered the whole world. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it's just weird to think about. A lot of the 19th century writers and poets that we love to read, like Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne, undoubtedly experimented with opium.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you think about it, it does, and coming from somebody with a psychology background, it really does make sense because of the amount of pressure and stress that you're probably under with, being president, for example. You're probably under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure on you daily, if I had to speculate. So if marijuana was legal and you could smoke, it would kind of relax you to, I'm not saying get stoned to where you're like falling asleep, but just hitting a joint a few times, let's say, might relax the mind for you to be able to at least think clearly, right? It would take your mental anxiety away.
I'm going to buy Louisiana.
Yes. It might free you up to be able to really not focus so much on the problem, but focus more so on the solution.
Well, these are interesting points. And of course, a lot of people have said that about psychoactive drugs, is that they actually help you and increase your awareness and that sort of thing. And again, remember that the question in Thomas Jefferson's time, the issue in Thomas Jefferson's time, I guess, is not whether marijuana was illegal. It's that nobody could have ever conceived of making it illegal. The very thought of outlawing an herb, I mean, that's so far from Thomas Jefferson's vision of the United States way of life, of the Constitution, of the concept of freedom. It's mind-boggling. It's the dark side of the moon from the notion of constitutional freedom. And the dark side, the progressives in this country started exploring the dark side of the moon in the 19 teens.
Mm-hmm.
And the FDA came into existence and started attempting to regulate opium and cocaine and marijuana, and basically requiring labels. And it was very, I mean, it's very much like the template for the 20th century was set, because people wrote novels. I mean, novels don't have that much impact anymore unless they're made into movies. Well, some do, I guess, maybe, another topic. But Harry, I was thinking Harry Potter has all sorts of social agendas in it. But there was a guy named Sinclair Lewis, who I admire his work in a lot of ways, but he was writing all about how bad processed food was. And basically some of his descriptions of processed food in the 19 teens and 20s led to the regulation of canning and food processing, and gave a lot of power to the Food and Drug Administration. And so the justification for the progressive era was a concern with the welfare of the people. Again, this concept of making people better by controlling their lives and telling them how to live. And that's the root of the war on drugs, and hence the root of zero tolerance. Prohibition was a program of zero tolerance, and it led to nearly a complete breakdown in national respect for law, because it was a nationwide custom, dearly beloved, to drink. And
Right.
again, we were talking last night about the Church of Yah Healer in California. Well, for 2,000 years, drinking wine has been a sacramental act. And you know, how could you, in the Roman Catholic and Episcopal churches, Lutheran churches, you know, obviously that's a gigantic hole in prohibition, because the First Amendment prohibited the complete suppression of wine, because that would be an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And I mean, it's interesting because they've sort of gone backwards at the Church of Jah Healer to say, well, you know, we're going to start a religion based on pot, and that way we're exempt from the law. Okay, yeah, we know what you're up to, but the original concept of freedom is just not such a bad concept. And so the way I've always phrased it is that the Constitution, the original Constitution, sets up a tripartite government. Legislative makes the legislature, the Congress makes the law, the executive branch enforces and carries out the law, and the judicial branch interprets and applies the law in special cases and controversies. But ever since Woodrow Wilson's era, there's a different three-part government. The IRS collects the money. Well, the Federal Reserve makes the money. The IRS collects and regulates the money in a different way, and the money is distributed through the welfare system, of which the Food and Drug Administration, actually the very first original welfare agency, if you want to think about it. Well, I guess you could say that subsidies for canals and railroads was the original welfare. But in terms of Marxist concepts, the very first welfare agency was the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture that tried to standardize and regulate agricultural practices nationwide was founded in 1862 under Abraham Lincoln, and that was the first basically intrusion into this field of food. You okay?
Yeah.
But obviously, having a Department of Agriculture, that's a precursor to regulating things like plant products like poppies and cannabis and cocaine, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand how.
It's It's a matter of how do you control people's lives? How do you control people's economy? How does a small group of people in a democracy, in a so-called democracy, take control of everyone else's life? Well, they say, we know what's good for you and you don't. Look at how you're living. Look at how you're living, Chardonnay. You're wearing t-shirts. You know, you should be wearing button downs like I do. And I know what kind of clothes you should wear. And so I'm going to institute a welfare program that makes sure that you don't wear t-shirts anymore. And I've got to come up with an elaborate justification for why button downs are better than t-shirts. You know, you may think they're comfortable. You may think that they're very easy to wash, whatever. But you know, I'm sure I can come up with something where I can come up with a big story about why my way of dressing. You can see I'm so stylish. Fred Astaire. You know, my way of dressing is something that you've got to accept. And that's basically what the welfare system is all about, is me telling you that I know something that you don't and trying to get you to do things my way, and then getting, you know, somebody with guns and jails to enforce. You can't wear t-shirts anymore. You have to wear button downs or else.
And you think just people back then didn't fight back?
No, I think that it's quite the contrary. People, it's not that people didn't realize really, and that's what was going on. That's why you need to read the Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
The history of a national bank in the United States is that Alexander Hamilton and George Washington favored the creation of a national bank. They were called the Federalists. They were the precursors, really, of big government Democrats. Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, James Madison were anti-federalists, and they call themselves the Republicans at that point. Different party from what we've got now. It was really the institutional ancestor of the Democratic Party, but the history of the political parties, that's another story. Totally. Anyhow, big government versus small government has always been the issue, and the existence of a national bank and the power of a national bank over governmental policy is the big issue, because I've got the creation of money. I mean, here's where the Rothschilds come in. I'm still a Rothschild, basically the patriarch of the Rothschild family, says, give me the power to make the country's money, or to create whatever the country uses for money. And I don't care what they make for laws. Law is subordinate to money.
Mm-hmm.
Because money is power. Money is the ability to survive. Money is control over land, which is food and drugs, and hence life. And so zero tolerance is ultimately the outgrowth of one of the policies of the Federal Reserve banking system, which was to promote welfare by regulating agricultural production and industrial production based on agriculture, in order to have a planned and regulated economy. And all the problems that we've got in this country related to drugs are the result of the drug laws. If the drugs had not been forcibly made illegal, there would be no crime associated with the ownership and distribution of drugs.
Exactly. Right.
That's the bottom line. In other
See,
words,
I was thinking that maybe they were trying to, put some sort of restriction on drug usage because of criminal activity that was stemming from drugs. Now, granted, this is just me in my mind thinking. This is not doing any sort of research behind it.
but again, the same thing can be said of prohibition. People do occasionally do nasty things when they get drunk, right?
Right. Agreed.
I mean, people lose control of cars. People lose control of their emotions. I mean, people get into fights when they're drunk, and some kind of drugs have the same effect. But overall, the war on drugs has been the war of corporations to take power from people, of government in alliance with corporations to take power from people. And we were talking about Woodrow Wilson and the origins, the deep origins, but it all sped up in the 1930s under Franklin D. Roosevelt. In the 20s was a bundle of contradictions, because in the 1920s, two things came into existence, basically. One was organized crime to get around prohibition, and the other was the birth of the American National Police. What do we call the National Police here?
I don't know. What do you mean? What do we call them? The feds? The feds? That's what everybody says.
Who are we referring to when we talk about the feds?
The federal police. I mean, I don't know. IRS, people high up. I mean, the IRS comes after you for the money, right?
Who is you? We need to, among other things, you need to see a lot more movies. I can tell that you need to see a lot more movies. You need to.
Yeah, I've never really watched TV.
You've never seen The Untouchables?
No.
Never heard of Elliot Ness?
Mm-mm.
Let's look up Elliot Ness just for the fun of it. Elliot Ness and The Untouchables, the origins of the National Police, which are called basically two big branches of the National Police. The biggest is called the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I think you've heard of them.
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't.
I mean, I know who that. Yeah, the feds. I just call them feds for short. I mean.
Okay, but that's the, and then the other.
I think sometimes whenever you ask me questions, I think way too in depth about it. Because you're so intelligent, so it's I don't know where he's going with this. I don't know what he wants me to respond.
I just want you to organize thoughts, and sometimes don't worry about it. We're here for fun up to a point, and the fun has a serious purpose. We are trying to prepare you for big things, and that is the dream. But there's also something called the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
I've heard of that too.
So ATF and FBI, IRS, of course, is just specialized. The feds is a general term, and special term for the IRS is the revenuers.
Yeah, they collect the money.
So anyhow, let's see. We were going to look up. Have you looked up? Show me what you found. You share for a change. Show me what you found on origins of the FBI.
Well, I don't know how to share my screen with you.
There's not a button on your screen that says share screen.
Hold on, let me look real quick. I looked for it the other night and I could not find it.
Okay, I mean, on my screen, it's right in the middle.
Share screen, host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, well then I'll, are you empowered now?
Let me try it. Yay. Okay, select a window or application.
Hello, who's this gorgeous girl?
Say hi.
A brief history of the FBI.
History, FBI.gov.
(1908), the year that Teddy Roosevelt ceded power to William Howard Taft. The nation calls. Oh, God. Talk about propaganda. The United States was, well, united with its borders stretching from coast to coast, and only 2 landlocked states left to officially join the Union. But there were dark clouds on the horizon. The country's cities had grown enormously by 1908. There were more than 100 cities, 100 with the populations of over 50,000. And understandably, crime had grown right along with them. In these big cities with their many overcrowded tenements filled with poor and disillusioned, and with all the ethnic tensions of an increasingly immigrant nation stirred in for good measure, tempers often flared. Clashes between striking workers and their factory bosses were turning increasingly violent. And though no one knew it at the time, America's cities were also becoming breeding grounds for future generations of professional lawbreakers. In Brooklyn, a 9-year-old Al Capone would soon start his life of crime. In Indianapolis, a 5-year-old John Dillinger was growing up on his family farm. And in Chicago, a young child christened Lester Joseph Gillis, later to morph into the vicious killer Babyface Nelson, would greet the world by year's end. God, and they think that propaganda is something limited to communist or fascist nations. Not at all. But violence was just the tip of the iceberg. Corruption was rampant nationwide, especially in local politics, with crooked political machines. Tammany was destroyed by what's his name? Boss Tammany was destroyed by the Tammany Ring was destroyed by Tilden. Anyhow, that was not 1908. Big business had its share of sleaze too, from the shoddy, even criminal conditions in meat packing plants. Was I just telling you about that? Claire Lewis, shoddy, even criminal conditions in. How did they become criminal? Because they made laws. And muckrackers like Upton Sinclair, so artfully exposed to the illegal monopolies threatening to control entire industries. Okay.
What I want to know is, crime, because you made a good point there. How can you commit crime if, it's not if you didn't outlaw anything like this? But I wanted to violence, I guess is a better way to put it. What was the increase in violence from after they started the whole, war on drugs policy thing compared to before?
You may not have watched much TV, but I assume you've seen at least 2 or 3 Westerns during your life.
I don't know, probably not.
Are you for real?
I'm for real.
Do
I am sheltered. We talked about
hang on,
this.
you do know what a Western is, don't you?
Yeah, like a Western old-timey movie.
Okay, so you've seen them.
No, I haven't seen them, but I mean, I know what it is.
You are literally blowing my mind. Now, why do you suppose they choose? Let's look at these pictures for a second.
Okay. I know, I was looking at them, then I scrolled down. Okay.
Who's that? Hi there. Do you know who this is?
Yeah, but I forgot your name.
What did you say?
Paris.
She said, yeah, but I forgot your name, Mr. Charles.
Hi there. No, I'm not. Hi there. Oh, it's good to see you. Who's this? This is a party we haven't seen before.
Yeah, the cat had kittens.
Oh, these are new people.
Yes, they're
hello.
little newbies.
Anyhow, that's Theodore Roosevelt. That is President Theodore Roosevelt that we were talking. Now, isn't that odd that the FBI would choose to start the discussion of the origin of the FBI with precisely the same president I was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And he had an interesting attorney general. His attorney general was, I guess, a great grandson of Napoleon Bonaparte. Hey, good night. Good to see you.
She's playing with the kittens on the floor.
Anyhow, 1908 was the year that Henry Ford's Model T first began rolling off the lines in Motor City. So
22 years later, Bonnie and Clyde.
My question to you, though, was going to be, did the violence in the Wild West have anything to do with drug use?
No. I'd say more so if anything. I mean, like, I guess whenever you think of Western movies, you think of like bars. So if anything, you think of alcohol.
Right. But, was that really the cause of violence?
No.
Or was that just a setting where people would meet and, if people meet, they might get into fights, right?
Right.
Kind of like schools.
Right.
And so, human nature is fraught with conflict. And
agreed.
That might
people are going to do that with or without any sort of substance. So, right.
As they do in schools. You can't stop little kids from fighting occasionally.
That's right.
And I don't know. I guess the interesting question, is there less violence today than there was during the Wild West?
I feel like violence has increased.
Yeah, it might well have increased, but that would be an interesting question to try to do some research on in this, because did these laws against, prohibition basically unleashed the whole concept of gang warfare on the entire United States. There may have been, as it says here, there may have been Tammany and Tweed in New York, and there may have been gangs in Boston, but outside of that, they weren't really organized crime the way you got nationwide crime or criminal organizations in the 1920s. And you had to have criminal organizations in the 1920s to keep liquor flowing, just like, and of course, what's the predictable result of making something very popular, very widely in demand, illegal?
You're going to have criminal activity where people are going to.
But and what else as far as the market structure goes? If you make something illegal, what happens to the price?
It goes up.
Way up.
Yeah. And
so who profits most from having something illegal?
The criminals.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're creating one problem after another.
That's right.
And you're basically making people, if people wanted liquor in in the 1920s. They had to pay more for it. They had to risk becoming criminals themselves by buying it. If you have a law like that, it decreases respect for ordinary laws, like, you know, don't steal, don't be violent. I mean, those laws are, you know, basically going back to the 10 Commandments and stuff. But
well, that's one reason too why I feel like there's more than likely been an increase in violence because of that.
yeah, because because outlawing something necessitates more criminal activity, higher prices make more criminal activity necessary. You have to steal to get the money to buy what you want.
That's right.
And that is,
and then, you know, you throw too in just, you know, other factors, like it's human nature to want what you can't have. Right. So I feel like it's more encouraging if it's outlawed, like people are going to rebel, specifically during like younger years, you know, adolescent years. So you throw that in the mix too. And I mean, I don't know.
Remember what you said earlier about stress. Adolescence is inherently a stressful time of life.
Right.
You know, there are all these choices, there are all these decisions, and, you know, arguably adolescents need calming. And oh, here's a thought for you. I think in your generation you can relate to this. You must not take drugs. You're so upset. Here, take this ADD medicine. Have some Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not teaching people that the solution to every problem is in a pill?
Absolutely, but that benefits pharmaceutical companies. So,
and who was we saying pushed the Federal Reserve and the income tax and the 17th Amendment and the entire progressive agenda in the name of welfare?
Roosevelt?
No, big corporations.
What?
Big corporations. The Roosevelt family were created by the 19th century industrialism in America. I mean,
and the Rothschilds, for that matter, because if you look into it, I'm pretty sure that don't they own or have something in pharmaceutical companies?
The Rothschilds are the richest family in the history of the world, not just in
yes,
the world, but in the history of the world. They have indirect control over almost everything because they control the money.
Right.
More so in Europe, probably more directly in Europe than here, but indirectly here. There are a few Rothschilds living in the United States, but basically the family is based in originally Germany, then France, then England. Meyer Amstel lived in London, and oh God, I mean that family is a phenomenon. And did they create? We could go on till 5 o'clock in the morning.
I know so many things correlate.
I'm just warning you, we could, because I don't think it was with you that we were talking about how the Rothschilds basically created the British Empire. Oh, look at this. This is mommy.
This is the mom.
This is mommy. That was baby and this is mommy. Okay. Yes.
Come on, you got to get out of here. Come on.
She doesn't have to. Tattoo is the mother of Pickle Purr, a little black nothing of feet in the fur. When his last his eyes came through, he saw his mother, the big tattoo. You know that poem?
Nope.
Reading assignment. Read tonight. Look up and read to. I forgot your daughter's name. I'm so embarrassed.
Coralie.
I'd forgotten Coralie's name. Read Coralie, the poem called Tattoo and Pinkle Purr.
Tattoo and what?
Pinklepur. Tattoo is the mother of Pinklepur, a little black nothing of feet in the fur.
All right, got it.
Tattoo is the mother of Pinklepur. Anyhow, it's a wonderful story. She's like 12.
Corley?
Yes.
She's 7.
7. Oh my God. Well, she's a perfect.
But she's very mature for her age.
Well, she's perfect age to hear about Tattoo and Pinklepur. You are Tattoo. She is Pinklepur. Anyhow.
Okay. Well.
Oh no, I was going to say the British Empire.
Yes.
Was the British Empire built on drugs? What do you know about the answer to that question?
Probably yes.
Okay, why? Which drug in particular?
Cocaine.
No.
Marijuana.
Opium.
Opium.
Opium, yes.
Why?
Vast fields of poppies in India, the center of the British Empire, the jewel and the crown jewel of the British Empire. British agriculturalists took over the production of opium in India as they took over India, and what did they need? They needed an ever-growing population of customers. Where was the use of opium traditional?
Britain? I'm guessing. What?
China and Southeast Asia. And
China?
Yes. And
I was not expecting that.
And so what did Britain do in the 19th century? Britain, France, and the United States participated in what was called the Opium Wars.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Against China. Those were wars to force China to buy Indian opium.
What?
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Our Western wealth is built in large part on selling forced sales of opium.
I did not know that. Why would they force China to buy it?
Large market, traditional usage, but not buying enough.
Huh.
And also the first war on drugs was in the Imperial Chinese government. They thought that too many Chinese people were becoming addicted to opium, and that it was causing degeneracy in the Chinese population. And so they attempted to outlaw opium, and that made it even worse. And the United States ganged up with France and Britain and Holland to force China to buy opium. And those wars basically weakened the Imperial Chinese and led ultimately to the collapse of Imperial China and the creation of Communist China.
Okay.
The greatest economic power in the world owes its existence to the collapse of the old order in China, which was caused by the Opium Wars.
That's interesting.
It's a long and tortured history, but basically, like I said, we could be here till, the details of the Opium Wars is long. The United States reasons for involvement in the Opium Wars is pretty interesting too, because after all, we declared our independence from Britain. But World War I, you were saying the other night you thought heroin was very nasty, right?
That heroin was what?
Basically one of the nastiest drugs around.
In my opinion, yes.
Did you know that heroin is a patented drug?
No, I did not know that.
Heroin is basically synthetic opium. It was invented in Germany. It was originally patented in Germany during the German Empire. But do you know who owns, I should say, who acquired and to the degree that there is still a patent on heroin, who owns it now?
No.
The United States government owns the patent on opium. No, on heroin, rather. I can't own a patent on natural substance. You know how we got it?
No.
What was Woodrow Wilson's war?
What do you mean? The prohibition?
No, what was Woodrow Wilson's war? His Great War. He actually was not around for most of Prohibition. He died in 21.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought he was around for that.
No, he lived. He served his 2 terms and died very shortly after he left office. He was very sick his last 2 years.
I don't know what his war was. What was his war?
Right. What war took place in 1917 to 1918?
I don't know. What war?
Chardonnay.
I told you I do not know history. You are acting so surprised by this. That's why I like talking to you, because you just tell me everything and then
You have a French name. You have a French name. You should know about
French War.
It was called the Great War of 1914 to 1918 at the time it happened, but these days we call it World War One.
Oh, I didn't know that was the year that World War One went down.
It's in essence part of the progressive agenda that the United States violated every precept set down during the formation of the government of the Constitution. George Washington had always said, never, this country should never entangle itself in European wars. But Woodrow Wilson, basically everything that Woodrow Wilson did was a disaster.
He did it anyway, yeah.
And everything that Woodrow Wilson did set the template for the entire remainder of the 20th century up until right now. You didn't hear all the talk about the centennial of World War One a couple of years ago?
No. Sheltered in a box. True story. Didn't even have books in there, clearly.
Or movies.
Or movies. All I had was a pen and paper.
Well, have you been writing a lot?
Yes, I write daily, probably.
I didn't know that about you. What do you write?
Just like random thoughts and poetry here and there, but I really enjoy writing. Really enjoy it. I can't say I'm the best at it, but I do like it.
I don't know what your poetry is, but we should take a look at it and see if it'll form a nice little campaign giveaway or something. Poetry by Chardonnay.
Yeah.
I would like that. That would be a really good campaign gimmick. Anyhow,
yeah.
World War. Oh God.
I'm telling you, I literally need to get a history book that starts from like day one, as far back as we can go, and me read it and so that way I know what is going on, because I literally do not.
I know the Kings of England, and I quote the facts historical from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. I'm very well acquainted too with matters mathematical. I understand equations both the simple and quadratical. About binomial theorem, I am teeming with a lot of news.
I mean, it goes to show you how much you really learn in school.
With many cheerful facts about the square of the hypotenuse. With many cheerful facts about the square of the hypotenuse. Anyhow, sorry. I totally, Woodrow Wilson's war. Oh, we were talking about the origin of heroin.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard of, you have heard of World War One, right?
Yeah, of course I've heard of it, but I just don't, I'm not very informed on it. Like,
Well, you didn't know the dates, which is like
no, I didn't know dates. I mean, I know we won.
1914 to 1918. And in 1919, to end the war, they had this disastrous thing called the Treaty of Versailles. And the Treaty of Versailles was typical of everything that Woodrow Wilson did. It was a disaster written by other people. And basically, he let other people do all this writing. And so it's a good thing that you do your own writing. But the Treaty of Versailles did a lot of really horrible things. And one of the things it did was it transferred a lot of wealth from Germany to France, Britain, and the United States, who were the winners in the war. Arguably, the big loser in the war was Russia, especially Imperial Russia, which went out of existence, but that's another story. What replaced Imperial Russia when it went out of existence?
Wait, what'd you ask me, Charles? I was reading up on the Treaty of Versailles. I'm sorry. I'm going to share my screen again because I'm still on here. So you can see what I'm doing.
Cool.
Okay.
Anyhow, Treaty of Versailles. Yes. What I was going to say was it mandated a lot of transfers of wealth from Germany and Austria to Great Britain, France, and the United States. Part of the wealth, two line items of wealth transferred from Germany to the United States in particular, were very valuable substances, patented substances. Care to guess what they were?
Heroin.
Heroin was one.
Yay!
And
see, I am learning.
Can you guess the other one?
Heroin.
Almost impossible to guess.
It's impossible.
Almost impossible, but you've probably used it. I use it every day.
Coffee.
No.
Every day. I don't know. What was it? What are the other two things?
No, there's only one other thing.
Oh, I thought you said three things.
No, two.
Heroin and what else?
Bayer aspirin.
What is that?
Bayer aspirin.
Oh, aspirin. Okay, I'm sorry. I misheard you. Aspirin? Why would they do that?
Bayer aspirin. I told you I take it every day.
Yeah, I hardly ever use that.
Anyhow, it's supposedly good for your heart. Basically, can you guess the etymology of heroin and why it was considered so powerful?
No.
Well, I mean, you're kind of a heroine, right?
I guess.
Right? You're a female here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but
okay. The etymology of the word is heroische. Heroin makes people heroische, makes them heroic. It basically destroys their fear and makes them into great warriors.
But it's not, because it's a downer. I could see if they were using like methamphetamine.
We could look up the history of heroin if you want. I'm not making this up, but
No, I mean, I believe you, but I don't know how they got that logic. I mean, I guess because it numbs. Maybe you have like,
you don't feel pain, and you're just not quite in your right. Oh, here's May 5th, the reparation. Did you see that? You went off. Right.
oh, wait, what?
I was going to point out to you the reparations committee. The on that page that you're looking at.
Here, I don't know what, hold on, I'm gonna put you back.
Heroin and Bayer were part of the reparations. That's what the transfers of wealth between
Where was it?
it was in the middle of a page, Holocaust Encyclopedia.
I was just reading that.
Okay, well, there was something that said May 5th. Oh, reparations, here we go. On 5 May, click on that.
Where is it?
The Reparation Commission. Down here, May 5th.
Oh, right here, yeah, more, okay.
Yeah. The Reparation Commission.
Now, this is on Wikipedia. Do we want to take this? I mean, you would know, I guess, if it's wrong.
It's more or less right. I mean, it's very general, obviously. But, you know, isn't it interesting when you think about the war on drugs? See if you can find what it says about heroin. Just look up the history of heroin, for that matter.
Yeah, that's what
Let's see what Wikipedia has to say about heroin. Not History Channel, heroin.
see, morphine, opium and morphine. I feel like, I mean, I guess maybe if you use a lot, I don't know though. I mean, I don't know. I've never used heroin, so I mean, I really don't know. But I've always known people whenever they're on heroin to do the complete opposite. Like they're usually like falling asleep or.
Scroll down. It doesn't. Bayer Pharmaceutical. Yep. Commercial preparation of heroin. Go on. Keep on going. Bayer aspirin and Bayer heroin. Heroin hydrochloride. Oh, here's interesting. In 1914, the Harrison Narcotics Act was passed. It was an attempt to stop the abuse of cocaine, heroin. So you'll need to look at the Harrison Narcotics Act. Stop the abuse of heroin, cocaine, heroin, and cannabis. Under keep on going because we haven't gotten to.
Okay. Hold on.
Treaty of Versailles.
Okay.
The French Connection.
Here we go again. This was the beginning of the arrest for drug abuse.
Yep. Hello, my name is Diana.
Are you looking for help?
Yes. We want freedom. Can you help us with that?
Okay, see, in 1924, the Deputy Commissioner of New York Police reported that 94% of all crimes were being committed by heroin addicts.
That's almost certainly BS.
Soon after, the drug was outlawed for both medical and illicit use.
League of Nations.
Charles, I'm probably got about 10 more minutes on here. I got to go get something to eat. I'm like starving.
Go eat. We've done 2 hours, and we've made some progress here. And when do you want to meet again?
You want to do tomorrow? I'll be at work late, so not tomorrow. Maybe Friday we might be going to Disney on Ice. I don't know yet. So if we don't go to Disney on Ice, you want to do Friday?
We could, I mean, I mean, what will your schedule be over the weekend?
Or we could do Saturday.
Let's do Saturday. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, let's do Saturday, and we'll both follow up on some of these topics and see where they lead.
Yes. I'm going to definitely keep looking into this because this is pretty interesting to me.
Oh, it is, and the history. I mean, the Harrison Act, and yes, all of this is very. I mean, like I said, you can have a 20-page essay and then distill it down to, I guess your share is going to be 2.5 pages.
I know it's going to be hard to condense all this information for sure.
Here's what to do. You need to learn all this. So let's go ahead and do the longer essay, and basically you can cite it in a footnote.
And condense it.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, it can be a footnote, but you know, let's get it all organized first, and then distill it, so to speak.
Okay, that works for me.
Distillation is a good thing to do with alcohol, right? Or various kinds of drugs.
True. So while we're on the topic.
As long as we're on the topic, yes. Well, anyhow, but go get something to eat. I don't want you to be starving for the sake of this. You've got much to do, and I want you to read Tattoo and Picklebird of Corley.
Yes, I'm going to read that to her tonight.
Yes, please do. Anyhow, Chardonnay, it's great to see you, and we've just got to remember, I've got to persuade you that wearing T-shirts is hazardous to your health. And let's think about how we can create an example of how welfare mind control works, that T-shirts are bad and button downs are good. And it doesn't matter that I own a whole bunch of factories where button down shirts are made, because I really only have your health at heart. Right?
We'll come up with some sort of propaganda for that, for sure.
Well, but I mean, that's the basic theory of, that's the basic problem. Who controls what and who can make money on what? And that, I mean, in answer, what were the questions again? Or I should.
Hold on, let me let you hear
What was the origin of the problem? The original problem?
The historical problems that led to the original policy, what historical problems led to the creation of the policy, in what way was the policy problem handled prior, when did the policy originate and how has it changed over time, and what is the legislative history of the policy?
Okay, well, that's a lot to cover in 2.5 pages.
Yes, it is.
That's just astounding. Anyhow.
And this has to include pictures too.
20 pages, 10 pages on a topic this broad, with pictures. I mean, that's semi-insane.
Yes, I sent you the sample of it. Did it come through on your end?
I've got it. Yes.
Okay, good.
Sample brochure for Moodle.
Yes.
Moodle. What's just Moodle? It sounds very German.
Yes.
Moodle is German?
I don't know. Sounds like it.
I don't see the word Moodle in here though. Anyhow, we will continue. We will continue, and I will look at this, and you'll go get something to eat, because it's healthy for you to eat. The Food and Drug Administration recommends that people eat.
Okay. Well, we'll regroup again Saturday. So I'll see you Saturday.
Oh, good night, Chardonnay. You take care and have a good week.
Good night. You too. Bye.
And enjoy Disney on Ice if you go.
I know. I don't know if we are or not. I gotta ask Coralie for sure if she wants to go or not, but I kind of want to go. I've never been.
Okay. Where is it?
It's in Biloxi, I think.
Oh, okay. Over there.
Yeah, opposite way.
Good night, Chardonnay. This
Good
is
night.
Wednesday, the 17th of November. It's good to see you. Good night.